could we agree there's no ketchup on a hot dog? Dave.
I put ketchup,
Oh,
relish,
God. Dave, you're
mustard.
50 fucking years old. You
Yeah,
put ketchup on a hot dog?
I
You put
learned all
ketchup
the
on
good
your
things.
eggs?
I do put ketchup
Oh,
on eggs.
come
I
on.
put barbecue sauce. I
This
put
is
Korean barbecue sauce on eggs. I put
Wait,
ketchup
you
on
are a
eggs.
triple board certified doctor and you put ketchup on your eggs? This is what the Jews call a shanda. You know what that is?
No, that's shanda.
All right, good morning, everybody. This is Rich Rockland from the Annex in West Hartford. I'm here with Dr. David Shapiro, a good friend of mine. How are you, David?
I'm well today.
Great. Thank you for coming in. I know it's a Saturday, but we wanted to get you on for some time, and it just happened to work out. David, what you are currently obviously you're a physician, a trauma surgeon, and you're the chief medical officer at St. Francis.
I am.
Fantastic. And um, you're a local nutmegger, right? You grew up in Connecticut?
I am a nutmegger. I grew up in Middletown, Connecticut.
Right.
I lived there till I was 18. Then I went on to college at Boston College.
BC, you're a BC guy. And,
BC guy.
and just give me a little background. Intact family growing up? Yeah. Intact family. You have a brother and a sister?
I have a brother, had a sister who died when we were young.
Okay.
My brother, as you know, is an
I
attorney.
know I know Jonathan very well, a great attorney, and you guys couldn't be more dissimilar.
Everyone says that, but yet when they meet my brother, they say, "You guys look exactly. We don't look anything alike."
No, that's what I mean.
People think that we are the same person half the time. We've had very parallel careers in a lot of ways. In that I've gotten involved in things, he's gotten involved in things. He was the president of the Connecticut Bar. I was the president of the New England chapter. He was the president of the Connecticut Bar. I'm the president of the American College of Surgeons chapter in Connecticut. He does a lot of charitable and good works. I do. We're brought up in a very similar way.
That's interesting. And what I meant dissimilar in the sense that you guys are obviously, a charitable minded. You help people for a living. You're in a service business. You help people get through problems, and you with health problems for you, him with legal problems.
Well, I look at it from the perspective when he was in law school. We went to a party together on Prospect Ave in Hartford, and I'll never forget it. One of his classmates comes up to me and says, "Oh, you're Jar's brother." I said, "I am." He says, "What do you do?" And I said, "I help people who've been injured in an accident." He said, "Oh, you're a lawyer too?" So people got a kick out of it, but no,
That's
I
a
did
funny
the other
joke.
side. Yeah,
But I mean, I'm saying, but personality wise, you guys seem very different.
I don't know. I mean, I am definitely. If you compare the two of us, I would say I'm the outgoing one, but he's Mr. Outgoing as well, and people see him. He's pseudo famous in his field. And
Yeah.
people know him and respect him, and that's kind of the fun part.
Yeah, he who has a better sense of humor?
Oh, definitely me.
Yeah, for sure. I think that one of the things I really enjoy about our friendship is you have such such a strong wit and sense of humor, and almost ribald sometimes. It's great.
I have to make fun of anyone I can because it's fun, but you have to be careful because there's a generational difference in what people understand to be ribbing versus what people understand to be insult and assault. My brother's one of those people who's he's only 3 years younger than me, but it was funny. I have this great video of him decanting a bottle of whiskey in his house. But whiskey, I mean, you decant bourbons, you decant fancy stuff. He's decanting a bottle of Jack Daniels, and I couldn't stop making fun of him when I videoed. I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "What do you mean?" And my brother's not naive at all, but he's hilarious when it comes to little things like that. He feels it's appropriate to put it in a decanter and drink it the right way. I'm like,
Regardless of the quality of it.
exactly. But in our family, Jack Daniels was considered an icon.
That's the same with me too. That's probably a high thing. We have a bottle downstairs. I don't know if you're an aficionado, but apparently it's a $250 bottle. And some guests love it. I'll have to show it to you after if you know anything about it. But I'm told by folks that I've sent pictures to, they were like, "I'm coming by for a sip of that." And to me, it tastes like gasoline.
I mean, so I was given a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle when I left for Oregon, and it's fancy stuff. Do I appreciate the flavor of it? Absolutely not. So every year on my birthday, I have a little sip of it, and I'm like, yeah, it's why I don't drink it every day. It's I'm not a big alcohol drinker, but when I do, I like certain things, but it's because I liked it, not because I want to be fancy.
All right. So you're together with in Middletown. Were you attended high school in Middletown?
Yep, Middletown High School, all public schools until I got to college.
Okay. And you're 3 years older than Jonathan?
Man.
All right. So you go to Boston College.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know?
Fine Jesuit.
Yeah. And you're obviously not Jesuit.
No, I know. So I got there, and I worked for the synagogue in town as a teacher.
Were you for those that don't know, were you Reform Jewish?
We were raised in a Reformed synagogue, but in a conservative way, or a conservative synagogue.
Did you go to temple twice a year, kind of thing?
No, I mean, I went to Hebrew school
I did too,
until I
yeah.
was like, I don't know, 16 years
Like
old.
Hebrew school on Sunday or Hebrew school every day?
So let's see. When you were kids, so you're going from kindergarten up to sixth grade, we did Hebrew school was Sundays.
Right.
And then when you got, I think the third grade, you had to do your first service as a group and you were Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday after school. So it was like an hour and a half. And then when you got to bar mitzvah age, you would go to learn with your class 2 days a week plus Sundays, and then you'd have private lessons with your rabbi in order to do your portions. And then when you get to be like, I don't know, 14 or 15, you have your confirmation, and then you're done. And all the stuff after that is just elective, so to speak. I
Right.
call it elective.
Did you bail out after that?
Kind of. I mean, I don't. I'm kind of not a person who believes that organized religion does much for people except give them the hope they need,
Right.
and I'm okay with that. But the other thing that it does, it gives people reasons to be enemies. So I have a hard time with,
Oh,
I'm a
interesting.
pacifist. So
Well, I want to talk about that as we get into your trauma work because you've obviously seen a lot of trauma and tragedy
mhm.
and death and kind of your thoughts on the
And
universe.
healing and life and
That's true.
restoration.
That is true because that's what
Where
you
there is
do.
light, there is darkness. Attorney Rick. Wow.
All right. So you went to Boston College,
Mhm.
Jesuit school, and did you know you wanted to be a doctor when you got there?
I knew I wanted to be a doctor when I was like 6.
Really?
Oh yeah.
And what was it like?
So our sister was born with transposition of the great vessels, which
Oh,
is a
I know.
condition that
Okay,
kids are
they're,
born
they're
with when
swept.
their aorta and the vena cava are kind of switched.
Was
And
that in the 80s or the 70s?
this was in the 70s, 1972. She was born, and
It's called TGA, isn't it? Is what they call
um,
it now?
I don't know
I
that
thought it was.
abbreviation. I don't know.
No, I know because
It's
my friend Beth, her son was born with this. This was in the 2000s, and there was a doctor in Boston Children's that was sort of pioneering a new technique to deal with it.
well, so the technique has gone from what they used to do was do these temporary intermittent surgeries in order to feed, because what you did was you had oxygenated blood going just back to the heart and not to the body, and the unoxygenated blood going to the body and not going through the lungs. So it was just a devastating
It's a
phenomenon.
mess.
So the old way was creating, there was a mustard operation and a senning procedure and all these different procedures that were meant to temporize things till they got older. Now they do an operation called an AV switch where they just switch the vessels. And it turns out those kids sometimes get what they think is an evidence of coronary disease, like, deterioration of the coronary arteries or disease of it later on in their lives. But it usually happens earlier.
Like arteriosclerosis, that
Yeah,
kind.
but most kids do really well with this operation. They can grow up full lives. All the complications of those older school surgeries are what eventually led to her death.
Oh, because what they did with him, I think, is they had to sort of not fully occlude, but occlude one of the arteries to get the heart used to the pressures.
Oh, that may be a different condition.
No, no,
But
no. But before they did the surgery, they did that for a little while. They had to sort of tighten up one
yeah,
of the
there
vessels.
are a few different. There are dozens and dozens of congenital heart defects that have very well defined that have certain things that people do, surgeons do, and catheterizing with surgery that surgeons do and interventional cardiologists do to help alleviate the symptom and the sign first,
Ah,
and then fix the problem
I
later,
see.
or vice versa. You have to fix them kind of appropriate
Right.
orders.
So she succumbed to that
Well,
disease.
she wound up having multiple surgeries, and then she went out to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester and was there for a long time and had complicated surgery and came back just not functional and in a wheelchair and
Oh, gosh.
not awake. And
How old is she when she
she
passed?
was 13 when she died.
And you were how old?
I was 12.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I lost a sister who was 8. She had cystic fibrosis and then had, some other conditions, aortic stenosis, some other things, and she died. I was in my 20s. We were about 20 years apart. But do you still like? Because I still do. I still remember that so vividly. It's still traumatic to me
Um,
as a child. I mean, I was in my 20s, but
I did my collegiate thesis on bereavement, and so it kept with me. But I find that when you are devastated by something, the more you learn and understand it, the more you can appreciate what its effect is on you. And I don't mean to diminish the experience because that's not what it's about. Trauma is something that people should experience. And not because you want it, but because everyone's going to face it eventually. And when you face some sort of traumatic event, whether it's an event to you or to your family or the death of someone you love, all those things affect what you do as you grow.
interesting.
And some things are psychological effects, some things are physical effects, some things are a combination of both because every psychological effect is a physical change in your brain. and depression and all those other symptoms that people have, all those other diseases and disorders that people have that we call mental illness are really just manifestations of chemical changes in your brain that can be treated. This is why there's such a stigma of mental health, is we didn't understand it for so long. Now that we're understanding more of it, we have all these great medications that can treat it. You can use it. I'm thankfully not, diagnosed with any of those disorders, but all of us have something in our minds that says I must be ADHD or
Let me just dig into this a little bit because I have a case recently. There's a statute that involves the Department of Children and Families where they can take sort of temporary custody of a child, and the statute says immediate physical danger. And the
mm,
case that had come up where there was a parent that was so emotionally traumatizing to their child that they basically convinced the child that they had been molested by the father, but it was fake and all of those things. And so, what I was trying to explain to the judge, and it fell on deaf ears, was that emotional trauma, like, it's even though the statute says physical, immediate physical danger, if I'm traumatizing you verbally, emotionally, that your emotion, the emotional trauma doesn't exist. You don't exist in sort of the ether. You're not a computer. It's impacting your brain. It makes
mhm.
physical changes. I mean, that seems to me like you would say that as well, right? That
I think it's a terminology thing that when people wrote these templated laws that say X, they say immediate physical danger, which means if someone's going to be
right.
shot, stabbed, injured, killed, then you have to remove them. But the ramifications of trauma, if we were intending to eliminate those possibilities, we would have to do so much more. The example I'll give you: if someone is bitten by a dog, and there's
Right.
evidence out there that a dog bite can be so traumatic that it can make you violent in the future. Now, I'm not saying everybody has that,
Like you'd
but
have a
there's evidence,
propensity to violence.
propensity to violence, propensity to respond in a certain way because
Uh,
you're in a violent household. Is that true or not? I mean, if one report says it, it's not true, but it happened. So we have to look at the world as if everything around us can affect us in a certain way, but we can't continue to be victims of it.
Interesting. Okay, so but I mean, you would. Does my argument sort of hold weight with you?
Um, well, I'm not your judge.
No, no, no. But I'm
So
saying, but as a
if I was an expert on, and I don't like to be expert in witnesses because I don't do that, but
no,
if
right.
I was called to a stand and someone said to me, "Does this cause a physical event?" The answer is going to be likely yes. We know that chemical changes in the brain result in different things that they look like on functional MRI and other studies of the brain. And you can see on an MRI a change after years of abuse or after years of behaviors. But is that an immediate physical threat?
Well, I
No.
guess that would be to the court, but I was just trying to note that it is a physical change. The question is whether that's a danger or not. Is I guess for the court to decide. But I would really want the physician, the expert, to say to me, "Yes, you traumatized me for years. That's going to make a physical change."
But traumatizing you for years is not an immediate physical danger, is it?
Well, it may be depending on how long it's gone on,
You
and
just answered your question
right,
then. So really the problem is, when does it happen and when could it happen?
right,
If I were to smack you in the face, love to do. I'm just kidding. If I were to, I don't threaten violence to most people, but if I were to smack someone in the face and they are injured by that because it hurts,
right,
that's hurt, not injured, right?
right.
And if you smack somebody in the face and they have a fracture or they'll lose a tooth or they break a nose, all those things are physical injuries that will heal. If I repeatedly do it and you then fear me and you're threatened by me and it changes your behavior because you then avoid me, and if I work with you, you can't come to me because I'm your boss, and
Right.
that's horrible. Same thing happens in intimate partner violence. Same thing happens in neighborhood violence, gang violence. All those things are threats to us, and we shouldn't have to live in fear. Fear is the worst injury anyone can have.
Interesting. Okay, let me put a pin in that for a sec and take me to. So you wanted to be a doctor since you were 6. You go to Boston College. Do you start applying to medical school your third or fourth year? How does that
No,
work?
no, no. I was not convinced I wanted to do med school right away because I met all these people in the pre med. I wasn't a pre med student. I majored in biochemistry and anthropology, and I was convinced I wanted to be something a little different. And I met all these people in pre med classes, and they were all such. Um, I love you all out there, but you were all such gutters. All they wanted to do was get the A, get
Right.
this. And what turns out is all those people, there was a group called the Mendel Society. It was all the pre-med students. And I didn't go to many of their events, but then I learned that they actually were allowed to have a keg. So I went to one of their events and I met people that I knew, but all they could talk about was, what was your MCAT score? What was this? What was that? And I'm like, people, first of all, stop. This is just, you're doing too much, in the modern way. But I think people found themselves so threatened by the possibility of not getting into med school that that's all they could discuss. Me, I wanted to do other things, so I didn't apply to med school right away. I also didn't have I was a B plus student, maybe A minuses, and I wasn't like of someone who's going to get in right away, so I just didn't. I got a job when I was a freshman at a local hospital doing some research in the summer and some lab fill-in work. And that kind of launched me into understanding certain things about medicine and certain things about research and certain things about what clinical medicine research do together
Yeah.
that I wanted to pursue that for a couple of years. So I did. I applied to med school my second year counselor in 97. I was waitlisted. And then in 98, I reapplied and I got into to UConn
So
and to
you and
somewhere
I are
else.
probably around the same age, 48, 49?
I'm 50, thank you
Oh,
very
you're
much.
50. All right, a little older than me. All right. Now, obviously, you're a gay man. When did you come out? When did that happen?
Oh God. Come out. So these days, everyone has these big gestures of coming out.
Right.
I didn't have a gesture.
Okay.
I was home from school one day. I don't know what year I was in
Like high
college.
school, or
No, home from college one
did you
day.
date women in high school?
No,
Did you date men in high school?
nope.
No, you just were like
I was just
figuring
like,
it out.
I'm figuring it out.
Right.
I was home one day and my mom and I were in the car and we were driving somewhere. I don't know, doing something. And she mentioned that she wanted me to bring home a nice girl or a nice guy.
Oh, she said
She
both.
said it. So, you know,
Nice Jewish
mothers,
mothers.
no.
Jewish
Yeah,
mothers,
mothers,
no,
no.
yeah.
So, but then it was just, eh. And then in the school years before, let's see, right before med school, I was with, there was a guy from London who I met through very unusual circumstances. I literally met him when I was in. This is a weird story. I was a friend of mine said I'm going to Key West next week, and I was a medical student. I was a first year medical student, and I had
And what college, by the way? Where?
UConn. I went to UConn
I
med
went to
school.
UConn Mid School.
Let's see. I went to maybe I may still have been between med school and college, but a friend of mine said to me, "Hey, I'm going to be in Key West. Are you going down next week?" And I'm like, "Don't just go to Key West. I don't have any money." So and he was a guy who's a couple years older than me and said, "Well, listen, I have a condo there. If you want to join me as an extra bedroom, it's yours if you want it." Well, we were friends. It was a nice guy, and I said, "Sure." So I paid for my flight. Back then, it was like $230 round trip to go to Key West because you flew to Miami, then
I,
the Puddle Jump.
did you drive to Key
No,
West? You didn't do that
no,
full drive? And you're what,
not that time.
23 at the time?
22, 23.
Right?
And then I went to Key West, and I went to there was like a not a city pool, private pool that he was a member of.
Right.
We all went there and met this guy, and we just kind of started talking, and then we went back and forth from London to Connecticut for a few years, and maybe 2 years, and then long distance wasn't going to work.
But you remember though a moment where you sort of like your persona, you live as, sort of openly as a, you said basically like,
Well,
hey, I date men now, like, or
Well, I never dated women, so
no,
that
no,
was
no, right? But I'm saying, but like I'm living as a gay man. What
well, I
was the
think a
moment?
lot of and I'll say this as kind as I can because I can't generalize because I know this story in lots of people's lives,
Right.
but not everyone's lives. Is that when you're sitting in your car, you're driving through, and you're going home, you're thinking about what your future's going to be, and you just have those moments of maybe I'll meet a nice Asian Jewish girl, and just I can live my life. No, that was never going to happen with me. It was me.
Right.
From childhood, I remember being like, he's hot, he's handsome. I want to be with that. And then, I just never really had that moment. I was even in the documentary a few years ago by a brilliant director named Jill Salvino. Jill Savino, who was she's an Emmy winner. She's like brilliant. Amazing piece. It was called oh my God, Between the Shades.
Okay.
And what she talked about was not just the spectrum of gender and sexuality. She talked about the people that were in that spectrum. And I'm quoted in it, and I have this video clip of it, me saying, I don't remember ever having a moment where I was like finally out. I just was. And when she first met me, it was a phone call. I remember her saying, because I have a if I don't have a cold right now. I just sound like this. But
Right.
once in a while, if I get really excited, I can have a higher voice. But usually, I'm just a little bit of a deep voice kind of guy.
Right.
And she's like, "Oh, I love your baritone." I'm like, "What?" She said, "I love your baritone." And I said, "Why?" And she says, "Because you represent part of the spectrum. You're different than some people." And some people who are, in the traditional terms, pardon this expression, but mass presenting or femme presenting or um, uh, people who are
Effeminate.
terrible
Is that a bad
word.
word?
It's a bad word
Okay.
because what's effeminate? What's masculine? What's feminine? If you think about traditional roles, masculine is deep voice and strong, muscly, and bullshit like that. But that's just people who can't afford the concept that they're not that.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So people who want to, and I'm going to give you a personal example for you,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
I like it.
Okay. What is your son's favorite thing to do?
Watch soccer.
Okay. What are other favorite things that you take him to that you post on Facebook?
Besides soccer and watch food,
And
theater.
theater.
Yeah.
Theater was always when I was a kid. Oh, you must be gay if you're in the theater.
Oh,
You're a
right.
guy,
That's true.
right? But clearly not.
Not.
I
Yeah.
mean, most actors and most stage workers are not gay, but yet people have this affiliation with them for some
With
reason.
the theater being gay, right?
Right, and it doesn't make sense that
Well,
way.
you never heard that expression, right? You'd say, is he gay?" And you're like, "How gay is he? Locker room at the Ice Capade's gay?" Like, that's like, it was
Locker room at the ice.
you ever heard that
I
expression?
think it's pejorative.
Is that for sure?
I'm
That's
just
funny.
well, I think it's funny until someone who's in the
I
locker
heard
room.
that well, I heard that like, I think I heard that from a comic in Providence.
Well, I think, but then, and that's the thing. If he thinks he can say that, or they think they can say that, fine. But if someone is using it in a way that someone is offended by, and these days
Yes,
it's
but
sensitive to that.
but listen, but you know me, Dave, it's coming from the heart, right?
Oh,
To me, it has to do
absolutely.
with intent. Like, because,
Totally
as
agree.
you know, I'm a huge fan of the and supporter and ally. And so it's coming from the heart. It's not from a bad place. It's sort of joking, and
And I totally agree with you, and I appreciate
yeah,
that. However, intent is, as you know, intent is how much of the
I
law?
don't know.
Not 100%, right?
Well, for a criminal conviction, you have to have mens rea, which is intent. You have to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right. So intent means everything in some ways,
Yes.
but when it comes to if you took 16 extra pills because you're upset at yourself and you tried to hurt yourself, but it was a cry for help and not a attempt to commit suicide, is what's the intent?
Interesting.
So you had intent to do what? Hurt them or kill them. You had intent to do what? Find it or lose it. You had intent to do what? Dress that way or dress that way. Intent is there's perception there that has to be considered.
Interesting.
And you can say he had intent for you have to prove it. I don't have
see.
to prove intent.
All right. So I won't say that, but
Oh, you
I
no, no, no. Let me say you don't have to stop saying it, but you have to realize that some people will
may
go,
not like that.
"I can't believe you said that," and they'll slam down their plate and be upset with you. And some people will say, "Really interesting." There's a great presenter on TikTok. I don't remember her name. She's an Asian woman who calls out people for Asian racism,
Oh,
and she's brilliant when it comes to it. But other people, she'll, I'm talking about Suji, I think is her handle on there, and she's brilliant. She talks about how when someone is making, these statements and uses weird accents to imitate someone
right.
who's Asian, generally Asian,
Yeah.
as opposed to
Well,
actually,
because India is in Asia,
right.
Turkey is in Asia, and then it's usually in the is sort of I think we're talking about like Japanese, Chinese,
And
South
and
Korean. Yeah.
that's the point is that she identifies that people make these comments, and you're like, oh, you're really gonna make fun of somebody? You're gonna make fun of an accent when you're in a country like the U.S. that has dialect accents that are
Oh yes,
huge differences. In
Boston,
regions.
Philly.
Boston, Philly. How about Boston? Difference between Philly and Baltimore is what
Oh,
50 miles,
and it's
and it's
completely
completely
different. Like
different
how they say
voices.
water. How they say
Yeah.
water.
I mean,
Hoagie.
Boston proper, Everett, and Revere.
Revere.
Fast.
Pack the cat.
It's very different where you go, and you subtly notice it. But is that making fun of someone, or is it taking advantage of your knowledge? And I don't know the difference, but if you're trying to do it to get a laugh out of somebody, and you're not that person, you got to watch it.
I guess. All right. I'll be more careful. All right. Now, can I
That's what a warning to you.
no, I know. Can I go down a rabbit hole with you for a
Sure.
second, and then we'll go back to the you and getting into medical school and whatnot. Do you think that as a could you generalize and say that anybody who tries to kill themselves is mentally ill?
Oh my gosh. When it comes to the book, now I'm not a psychiatrist.
No, I know.
I'm not a psychologist. I think the DSM-4 includes suicidality.
Well, it's
as the mental
DSM-5.
illness. DSM, well, whatever. But that's the DSM-4 line,
Yeah.
right? So the DSM, the manual,
Right.
says that suicidality is demonstrable mental illness, right, or a behavioral disturbance or behavioral
Right.
health problem. But if someone says the voices told me to kill myself, and that's what my out is, and I don't know what to do, and I finally commit an act that is endangering myself. that's mental illness, right?
Right. Sure.
If someone is,
Although from Hebrew school, plenty of people heard voices and did stuff. I mean, we were raised on a story that said
that's if you believe the oral
no,
tradition.
but no. But if you read the Torah, listen to me though. I know, but listen to me. The Torah says, right? You read, let's put our Jew caps on.
Mhm.
The Torah says Abraham heard a voice from Hashem, right? The God, and said, "Go take your son to the mountain and kill him."
Mhm.
And he gets there, he's about to kill him, and he says, "Aha! You listen to the voice in your
Mhm.
head. Now cut a piece of his penis as a symbol of our covenant."
Mhm.
If I came to you at the hospital, you would commit me faster than you could say apple.
True, but yet, Joel Osteen hasn't been committed yet. Ted Haggard hasn't been committed yet, and these guys are telling people that God speaks to them
I
all
mean,
the
you remember the
time. So,
focus on the family, all these guys,
yeah.
like so. But I'm saying, so yes,
All right. So
I
let me
do,
let me let me let me push back on something.
yeah,
Then. So let's say that your best friend
okay,
has been, and have you seen the movie Paddleton?
yeah,
Okay. Let's say your best friend is diagnosed with gastric cancer,
okay,
and he finds out that it's inoperable and doesn't respond to chemotherapy, can't be radiated,
it's terminal.
and he's got, well, I mean, all cancers are terminal without treatment, right? For the most part. Let's say he says, I'm going to die from this disease, and instead of dying of the disease, I'm going to take control of myself.
That's right.
And he enters the contract for the death of dignity act in California, like in that movie, or in Oregon,
Or in Oregon, right, or Switzerland, or wherever they go.
wherever it is, and he gets the 40 capsules a seconal and empties them all into a glass, fills it with water, mixes it up, makes his bed, goes to have a poop, pees, tells his family, drinks it, and goes to sleep and doesn't wake up and dies. Is he mentally ill?
No,
So not all self-caused death is
right. Well, that's my.
behavioral.
I think that was
Like,
my point. That's. I mean, that's certainly that's my belief because
and I'll ask you another question.
but
Someone who has an addiction to heroin
right,
and knows how to dose it because they've been doing it for years, and then suddenly gets a batch that's laced with fentanyl and takes too much and dies, and effectively commits suicide or kills themselves accidentally.
accidental overdose they call it.
Accidentally.
Right.
Is that person mentally ill?
No.
But they have an addiction, Rich. Hmm. Is the result of your disease killing you self-harm?
Oh,
Is
interesting.
the smoker who smokes for 40 years and winds up with a lung
That's a slow,
cancer,
is that a slow suicide?
that's a slow kill. So, um, again, you use the I word before, so I'm going to use it now. What's the intent? If the intent is to alleviate suffering, then they should be able to take their life if they think it's important, as long as it's done in a comfortable way. We as the federal government, and state government, we murder. We punish people by death,
Right.
right?
Some states do.
But some
A
states
lot of
do,
states do.
right? And the states that do have a variety of methods for it, and none of them, in my opinion, are quote ethical.
Right. I mean, they use that new drug they just tried to stop, and
Yeah.
apparently it's apparently an awful death.
Says who?
Well,
It's
there's
an awful process. Are they alive in the end? No. Then
no, but apparently there's a lot of suffering involved. There's some science on it.
and the thing is, we don't really have a good method for that, and we shouldn't.
Well, I'm in agreement. I don't think the state should be in the position. If the joke was or the saying was not the joke, but it was like, why do we kill people who kill people to teach them that killing people is wrong?
Well, it's like, you what do you go to school? You're in high school and you skip schools. What do they do? They suspend you. It was what's his name, Gallagher, the guy with the
Oh,
camera,
with
with
the
the
watermelon, he
watermelon.
just died. I think.
He said he won't come. We won't let him. I mean, it's like
You remember
it's
that guy?
effectively self-aggrandizing, but it's also stupid.
I bet you were at a Gallagher show before.
I've seen him.
Did you wear the poncho? Or
No,
was
I
that
don't think I
close?
can afford to be in the front row.
Remember that? That we hit the watermelons with the sledge.
Watermelons.
It was a
Wow,
genius.
it was. I don't know if it was genius.
I thought it was
Ridiculous.
genius. It was performance
He was
art.
it was, but it was like was Carrot Top performance art.
He's still around.
You
Did you
know.
see all the work he said though? That guy. Oh my god. He's still around. All right, let's go back. So you get to go to medical school at UConn, and
Mhm.
are you doing? Was that the program still here that you rotate between the three hospitals?
Yeah, you rotate, but actually it's John Dempsey,
Okay.
Hartford Hospital, St. Francis Hospital, Connecticut Children's, and New Britain General Hospital, or what back then New Britain
Oh,
changed
do they still do the? They do
Yeah.
5 now? Okay, I thought it was only 3 at one point.
Actually, some people go to other hospitals elsewhere.
It still go to UConn.
Yeah.
Okay.
UConn has affiliations, with lots of different practices. An example, when I was doing a family medicine rotation, I did it with I got the name Kerry Laporte. He was a doc in Colchester. Colchester, or yeah, Colchester. He was right across the street from Harry's hamburger stand, and I was
Oh,
there in
yeah.
April. Great.
Oh, yeah, that's been there 100 years, I think.
Oh, yeah, it has. But yeah, you rotate everywhere according
That's
to
the
what your
hot
needs
dog
are.
place, right?
I think it's a hamburger stand.
But are you like hot dogs? Oh, I don't know. Do you
That
like
I think that was pejorative.
No,
I think
come on, brother. No, do you like a hot
I
dog?
like a hot dog. I like sausages better than hot dogs,
Alright.
but
And do you like I don't know, here's my question. Do you like a chili dog? And
what kind of chili? Is it Skyline all meat chili or is it bean chili?
oh, Skyline, you mean the place near the airport?
So Skyline chili is in Ohio.
Oh, Cincinnati. The Cincinnati chili. Oh,
If I'm getting chili on a hot dog, it has to be ground beef and
fair enough.
spices,
Okay. But
not beans.
like Capital
Beans fall.
I'll find like Capital Lunch in New Britain. Have you ever had that hot dog?
Yeah, but I don't eat
Do you
hot dogs like that.
could we agree there's no ketchup on a hot dog? Dave.
I put ketchup,
Oh,
relish,
God. Dave, you're
mustard.
50 fucking years old. You
Yeah,
put ketchup on a hot dog?
I
You put
learned all
ketchup
the
on
good
your
things.
eggs?
I do put ketchup
Oh,
on eggs.
come
I
on.
put barbecue sauce. I
This
put
is
Korean barbecue sauce on eggs. I put
Wait,
ketchup
you
on
are a
eggs.
triple board certified doctor. You put ketchup on your eggs? This is
All the
this
time.
is what the Jews call a shanda. You know what that is?
It's not a shanda.
You were very Jewy there. I love
It's not a shanda. Shanda's a shame.
her. She's Jewish too, believe it or
Do you
not.
know what that means, though?
Yeah, I can't believe
So-
she's Jew. She's a shiksa goddess. She's like a
Well, you know the definition of shiksa, right?
what?
It's the non-Jewish girl that your son is not going to marry.
Oh, that's right. Right. No, I know shiksa means, but
No, but that's the description. It's a non-Jewish girl your son's
it's
not
gonna
going to marry,
marry. Right.
or my son is not.
All right, but here, let me ask you a question
Yeah.
because we got to pull out of this rabbit hole. The question is, does the ketchup go on the dog before or after the chili?
Oh, if I'm having chili, there's no ketchup on the dog.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, it's
Just
situational.
chili.
So if I'm eating I can't believe we got from that.
No, it's
chili
it's
dog.
over. But this
So if I'm eating a chili dog, number one, there has to be a small spread of chili on the bun. First of all, it has to be a top cut bun,
like a New England bun.
like a New England bun.
Yeah. Okay.
And it has to be pushed down the middle so it doesn't leak.
Yes.
And then you have to put chili on the bun first.
Oh, that's great.
Then you put the dog on.
Yes.
Then you add mustard to one side.
Yes.
And you add something. I usually put relish. I love.
Do you like
pickles.
hot relish?
No, I like pickles.
Pickles. Do you go to like? You ever been to like Blackie's in Cheshire or
Yeah.
Frankie's? They make the homemade hot relish.
Yeah, I'm not a hot relish guy. I love
Sweet.
pickle. I love like bread and butter pickles.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I like that too.
And I love half sours.
Okay. Oh, so do you ever have a Chicago dog?
Gross.
Okay. Through
No
the garden,
offense
they
to
call it.
Chicagoans, but
They call it through the garden, and I love
yeah.
that.
So I was just in Chicago for a meeting. It was American Houses Started meeting, and they have on the Friday of that meeting, they always have a local fair.
Right.
So they had quote deep dish pizza, which is like an Italian
It's a casserole. It's
gross.
stop. Don't even call it
Not even a
pizza.
pizza. First of all, and it
Fucking
wasn't pizza. It was
Chicagoans.
like thick crust.
Listen,
It was gross.
it's fine. Just call it a casserole. It's
Yeah,
delicious.
it was also
So-
gross. Second, they had hot dogs. Those red ones, the really red
Well,
beef
yeah,
hot
the
dogs,
Vienna. That's the Vienna hot dog. That's what you use for the.
and they were good hot dogs.
Yeah,
if you're gonna eat a hot dog,
snappy, it's
yeah.
good.
But they had onions and peppers mixed together.
Okay.
And if you don't like onions, you don't like peppers, you can't. You have to get both. So it was both.
All right.
I put it all on there, but I
Yeah.
put that on first. I
Okay.
think that the dog
Before
should
the
be on-
dog.
dog should be on a bed of vegetables.
Oh, see, this is you know what you're
and
doing.
then ketchup on one side, mustard on the other, and then if there are pickles, relish goes on top.
Oh,
And then you have to eat it like this.
This, you know what
You
you're
know?
doing, brother.
Oh, yeah.
It's sort of like I used to work at
Look at
McDonald's.
me, I'm an expert.
No, but one of my jobs, first jobs was McDonald's, and you know those little hot fudge sundaes that they have.
I've never had it. They've hot fudge sundaes.
Oh,
Oh, the little clear cup. Yeah, no.
Well, anyhow, but what I used to make it is for people, and they love it.
Oh,
is
you got to put chocolate syrup at the bottom.
first.
Of course.
Yes.
Because if you go to
knows,
if you go
he
to
knows.
Dairy Queen did that for you.
Yes.
You just say you would say I want soft serve vanilla ice cream with chocolate syrup, and they said you want syrup first. And I'm like,
Of
Yeah.
course.
not
No,
everyone does.
no, but they knew, but you make layers of it.
Yeah, it's like when you get an espresso martini, you should have chocolate in the bottom first.
All right, and we agree that Carvel is better than Dairy Queen.
Can't believe you just asked me that.
You come. There's not even a.
All right. So but this is so I can't make that kind of generalization because of one reason. Because of the nature of what they produce there. So the ice cream is fantastic, or ice cream, whatever it is, the ice cream
Ice cream.
frozen content that they come out of
At Carvel.
at Carvel.
Fantastic.
It's thick,
Yes.
sweet. It's all the things that you want, and it's not yogurt.
And it doesn't taste chemically, like a chemical.
A little,
You still really?
but they all do.
Okay.
However, cookie puss should be illegalized.
Illegalized.
What's the fishy what's it?
Oh, Fudgy the Whale.
Fudgy the whale, gross.
Oh,
I don't want that crammed
This
into a
is-
cake. I want it in a giant cup so I can eat it.
brother, that's the answer. We do a Fudgy the Whale Sunday.
Okay, but then you're the category. I'm gonna offend people now by going to Jesus Frog. That place that
Oh, yes, yeah. You know what Sweet Frog stands for, right? It says fully rely on Jesus, on God.
fully
God.
rely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I felt uncomfortable going there a couple times because they all were like, "Hi, God bless you," and I'm like, "I'm just want ice cream." So
All right, let's go back. All right, so you do go to UConn. Do you match with UConn? Remember the I
so when you get into med school, you get offered med school, and then you
right
have to choose to matriculate. I actually matriculated at what is now Drexel, which was Hahnemann
in Philly?
in Philly.
Yeah.
And I moved down there, and I wasn't really happy moving down there
Okay.
because I don't like. I wasn't a fan of Philly. It's in
Right.
Center City. It's okay, and I didn't know anybody. But I was happy that I got into med school. And then 2 days after I get down there, I get called by UConn saying, "Hey, listen, you were on the wait list. I'd love to invite you to be at UConn." And this is in August, so you're about to start school, and I'm like, "Hell yes!"
So you're like, pack up, see the
Oh, I like literally packed up that day. Thanked my roommate Brandon, who I still talk to once in a while, and left. Drove home. I met cousins. I have cousins in Philadelphia. So I
yeah.
was staying with them part time, but it was not going to happen. I get to Connecticut, and then I found out from Connecticut that the rule is once you matriculate at med school, you can't say no.
Oh
You have to
shit.
back out. You don't have to go to the other school. All the other offers are out. So I had to get special permission to stay at UConn. And then I opened up a spot at Drexel, so they were able to fit somebody else in there. But they had
It was a whole. It was a thing.
it was a thing. It was a whole deal. So I came to UConn, and I remember my first day. The three people that were on the
And one last thing, where's the campus at
Farmington.
It's right at John Dempsey.
Yeah.
Okay, it's there.
Well, John Dempsey is attached.
Oh, I see. To the school.
You know
Oh,
that place that we spent a state money on,
yeah.
$1 billion on that place.
I know it well.
We could have done a lot more.
So you go there, you do your 4 years, and then what? Then it's residency.
Then you go to the match during your third year
And it was
residency.
just match day the other day. I just
Yes,
saw
it
like
was.
on
It was
TikTok.
match day on
Yeah.
Friday.
Yeah.
Match has changed a little bit in concept, but it was match day yesterday.
Okay.
They find out if they match on Monday, Tuesday. Actually, you find out on Monday if they don't match. And then or Tuesday. Tuesday you find out don't match, then you can enter the so-called what you used to call the scramble. I didn't. But once you
Is this based on grades or is there politics involved?
most med schools are actually pass fail, so there are no
Oh,
grades. So you have to get letters. You submit your application. You have to write a statement, and depends on what you write, what you want to do. You have to show that you did good performance. So there are standardized tests
so
as well.
but how do you like? How do you gain advantage to like go? Say you want to go to
How do you
Duke or what?
differentiate yourself?
Yeah. Or
It's really by performance on certain tests.
Oh, I see.
So when you get the MCAT before you get med school, when you take the STEP exams, the United
Oh.
States Medical Licensing exam that you get at the end of med school, there's step 1, step 2, step 3. If you do well in step 1 and step 2, then you can show that you're a high performer, and then they have to evaluate you by interview. But even now, residency interviews are usually online now.
And those are uh, based the step one and step two are they're medical questions. It's not like the logic and
No. There's very little. Well, there's logic on the test taking.
right, but it's
But
not questions about like like you do for the LSAT. They're not law questions. They're just
No, these are medical and scientific questions. A lot of them are chemical. A lot of them are process. A lot of them are not about drug choices.
no,
but
no,
about
no.
disease states.
Right. Okay, so you do that. So then they match and you match where?
I'm actually UConn.
Okay.
Actually, I found out early. You're not supposed to do this, but the chairman of the department now, who is now deceased, Joseph, that is the father of American surgical critical care,
Wow.
was the UConn chair and a Harvard Hospital chair. Was a great guy, very smart, big UConn fan. And I remember him saying to me about 6 weeks before the match, or 4 weeks before the match, what happens is you submit, you interview, you apply, they grant you an interview if they want you, and you go to interviews. I went to 7 interviews. These days, people want like 35 of them because there's really a lot of them online, but it costs money. So you apply to your interviews. I went to 6. I went to the seventh one was in Buffalo, and I got caught in a snowstorm, and I had to turn around and come back, and I couldn't go. And I was like,
And there was no Zoom then.
no, come on. There was telecommunication, but it was bad. They weren't going to have those. But um, I remember interviewing. I remember I liked 3 places. I liked UConn for residency. I liked UConn. I liked Vanderbilt, and I liked Washington Hospital Center down in
St. Louis?
DC.
Oh, DC. Okay.
And I like those 3 places, and I ranked them 1, 2, 3. UConn first, Vanderbilt second, Washington third. And I ran into Joe Savetta in the hallway. I said, "Hey, Dr. Savetta, nice to see you." Because I had done some research with him, and he goes, "Hey, Shapiro," because I wasn't a doctor yet. And he said, "What did you put your rank list? Because you entered your rank list." And I put 1, 2, 3. Some people put 15 or 16 things in. I put 1, 2, 3 in, and then the system, the program, will enter their rank list. So if you're UConn and you put in Dave Shapiro first, Rich Rockland second, Julie third, and 4, 5, 6 for the class that you're into, because I'm applying to general surgery, there's 6 categorical positions in each class, which means they can rank 6 people. But then they rank additional people in case those people didn't rank them or didn't put them high enough. So I rank them first and they rank me first, I'm matched.
And you're stuck.
And well, you're
Or
committed.
you're
You're committed.
committed.
So I ranked them first, and he said to me, "So did you see me rank this?" I said, "Yes, I did." He goes, "Where'd you put UConn?" I said, "I put it first." He goes, "Oh, then we'll see you in July because I ranked you first." And I'm like, "Oh, there's takes away all the the surprise." But I'm like, "Oh, okay."
And then you call it everyone like, I'm in.
No, no, you're not supposed to.
Oh,
You're not
because
supposed to say that.
you had a special
It's a binding agreement, and there's a rule that you have to follow. You're not supposed to tell people at a time. And these days, it's much more secretive. But I was very happy. I was like, yes, now I know I could, invest in a place or rent a better place and live somewhere cool instead of where I was living. But then you matriculate. I think so. That's in March. Then you get to then you plan on July 1st, or really it's June 26th or 25th, and they have you do orientation, and then you go and get all your stuff done.
all right. And then you do 4 years at UConn?
5 years residency.
Yeah.
Residency's 5 years.
So 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, 5 years of
residency.
general surgery residency, and you're doing all types of surgery?
Yeah, general surgery. Back then, there was rules. You had to have exposures to certain things, and you had to have experiences. So exposure, experience are different. Experience means you're on a rotation for 6 weeks,
Right.
and that's repeated several times, or 5, 4 weeks, whatever it is. The exposure is you have to be exposed to a couple times. So specialty stuff like cardiac surgery, we did 1 month of cardiac surgery when we were a intern, and then 1 month when you're or 2 months when you're a fourth year.
Uh, like endoscopic surgery or crack the chest surgery?
No, cardiac surgery, like doing valves and doing
Okay.
blood vessels and things. Then if you were interested in that, then you apply to fellowship.
I see. And then you could really laser focus on that. Okay. Did you do a fellowship?
I did.
And what kind of fellowship?
Acute care surgery, surgical critical care.
And where'd you do that?
Oregon Health Science University.
Oregon. Okay. Yeah, I have a client from Salem. You ever been to Salem?
I've been to Salem.
And Sisters. He always talks about
Oh yeah,
Sisters.
Sisters are good.
It's a nice place.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's in Salem.
Yeah, Santiam and I've visited.
Yeah, no offense, Salem. Love you all.
But Salem's but no, but Sisters is a beautiful place apparently.
It's very nice.
Yeah. So how long are you out in Oregon?
It was actually I stayed an extra 4 months because they asked me to stay to cover a doc that wasn't there.
Oh.
So I just joined their staff for about 3.5 months, and I came here. And
But in fellowship, you're a fully licensed physician at that point.
so fully licensed is different. So the terminology is when you finish your medical school career and you take your step 2 exam, you can then apply for a medical license. But medical license required step 3. Step 3 is the USMLE step 3, which is the license exam that happens after your first year of internship or residency. So once you're done with that, then you have to apply for non-provisional licenses. So when you're a resident in UConn, for instance, you have a UConn resident license that Connecticut grants.
Are you an MD at that point?
Yes, because your MD is a degree.
Oh, so
Doctor of medicine.
So, but you're not. You could be an unlicensed MD.
You can be.
Oh, I see.
So one of my good friends who works for Click now, it's a marketing and feature firm.
Right.
They do a ton of work out in Toronto. He graduated from med school and said, "F you to residency," and each wanted to do something different. So
Can he call himself a doctor?
yeah, he has a degree.
Oh, I see. It's just you just don't have a license.
He's a physician because he graduated MD, but he's not licensed to practice medicine, and he did never get a residency.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. So you do your fellowship. You finish there, and then you head back here after that.
Well, I was recruited to a few different places, so I was interviewing around. Told my mom I was moving to Nome, but she didn't mind. She thought I later thought it was hilarious, but I came back to Connecticut because I was heavily recruited by St. Francis.
And you've been there ever since?
I've been there ever since. Yeah.
Wow. All right. So now, do you do any surgery now? In your
very little.
You do some though.
Occasionally, I get called to kind of say, "Can you come to the operating room and help out with this?" And I do that, but very rarely.
Do you miss it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I still teach some places that they do classes.
Like if somebody came to you and said, "Hey, Steve, I really want you. Would you like sort of?"
I'm privileged to do that.
Yeah.
I did that for a little while, but it's why do that when you have great partners who can do it?
Oh, right. I mean, I don't know, but sometimes, I mean, you know, my sense is that you really get a lot of enjoyment out of it.
I did.
Yeah.
But I also remember, so when I was in college, my first year in college, 1991, I worked for a hospital that I did work in the lab, but I also did work in the animal operating room. So I've been doing things. I learned how to do so. I was doing kidney transplants 3 years later on pigs. And although people might be offended by that, I'm sorry. But, I learned to do those things in the lab, and I'd been operating, and I wound up being on call for an organ procurement agency, for doing, organ procurement. So I was an assistant in the operating for those. So I've kind of been doing that for a very long time. So doing this for 15 years and then moving to an administrative role was kind of a natural step for me.
Right.
I
But
felt
but but there you were running the trauma department there, is it right?
no, no, no,
No?
no,
You
no.
never ran that
Nope. I was the chair of surgery for interim for a couple times, one for 8 months, one for 10 months.
Alright, but you were a trauma surgeon,
I was.
attending physician,
I
right?
was a surgical critical care leader, and I was the vice chair of surgery for a long time. Then I was the chief quality officer, and then I'm the chief medical officer.
And so, how many I mean, so you have people coming in and, critically wounded to the ER, a lot of gunshots,
All types of
all
injuries.
types of injuries. You are heavily involved with the, Stop the Bleed program.
I am.
Tell me about that.
Stop the Bleed was born originally as something called bleeding control or BCON. BCON was a product of the Department of Defense. And what they did was they created a program that they could teach soldiers how to save themselves from injury. That evolved into something that was discussed at the Hartford Consensus. You heard that one?
Mm.
The Harvard Consensus was the group of people under the Obama administration, under the Obama administration, who gathered in Hartford with Len Jacobs, who was a local trauma surgeon from Hartford Hospital, who'd been around for a long time, now retired but still involved. I just was with him a week and a half ago for this meeting, and then Attorney General Blumenthal, then freshman Senator Chris Murphy, and several others from the White House, from the Department of Defense, from Joint Chiefs, and a few other kind of well-known and well-respected people came together in response to Sandy Hook to say, how can we prevent people from dying after gunshots? And they pushed this program called Stop the Bleed, and it was the American College of Surgeons version of BCON. And so it's evolved over the years to not just be about violent events, but about any type of injury. So at first, a lot of surgeons were saying, well, wait a minute, we're supposed to stop shootings. This is still just secondary prevention. There's a delta between
Mhm.
primary, secondary, and tertiary prevention. The prevention you're talking about is death. Primary prevention from death includes things like a vaccine. You're doing something to prevent you from dying to a disease. Does it prevent you from getting a disease? All you vaccine haters out there? No. It reduces the likelihood of you getting a symptomatic
That's
disease
right.
and decreases the duration of the effect of the disease, and can actually decrease the likelihood of you transmitting to somebody else, which is a great public health concept. But if you imagine in a car, you know what primary prevention in a car would be?
Seatbelt.
Okay. No.
Okay.
Technically, it crosses between primary and secondary because if you crash,
Oh,
that's the event. So you're trying to prevent an automobile crash, which
um,
results in you dying. Lane departure alerts,
oh,
proximity alarms, auto steering, those auto corrections, when on that auto braking, when you're approaching somebody closely, all those things that are modern now are more primary prevention because they prevent the crash. Speed governors, speed limits are actually primary prevention. But most of what we've done is curtain airbags, trimple zones, all those things that may prevent people from dying in crashes. They all help with preventing people from dying or getting injured when a crash happens. Surgeons represent or trauma centers, emergency medicine docs, nurses, all the people who take care of your EMS, and first responders all help you prevent dying. They're tertiary responders or tertiary prevention. Because once the injury has occurred, they can stop you from dying from it. So primary prevention prevents the injury from happening, but directly. Secondary prevention helps you experience the crash or the event in a way that you get injured from it or reduce the injury. And tertiary prevention helps treat the injury after it happens. So if you think about Stop the Bleed is meant to indicate or meant to suggest that a bystander, what we call immediate responders, can then intervene when they see a bleeding emergency. And no one really knows what a bleeding emergency is, but you really do. If you see blood spurting or blood bleeding somewhere, you should do the same thing you do when you have a paper cut that you do when you have a bigger laceration, is hold pressure on.
pressure.
Pressure is first and foremost, and it's hard pressure. It doesn't feel good. It's firm. And if you see somebody bleeding, you have to make sure the scene is safe. You have to call 911 or call whatever emergency service you have. Get people out of that scene and then hold pressure on a bleeding wound. Everyone talks about airway being first. These days, we talk about massive hemorrhage being first, something called March, which is massive hemorrhage, then airway.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we're moving a little bit of
And
paradigm.
and then would the pressure also include a tourniquet?
So the three steps of Stop the Bleed include number one is pressure.
Okay.
Number two, for a gaping wound, is packing that wound. So if a wound is wide open like a gunshot, it's getting bigger inside, you pack it with gauze to fill that cavity. You can use a ripped T-shirt if you want to. You pack it to fill that cavity up and then hold pressure.
But I just read about a security guard that they carry tampons in case somebody stabbed or
You mean at like corrections facilities?
no, like if you're a personal security guard or like Secret Service, they carry that to like as a means of
I'm sure
somebody
some people do. So, tampons that were traditionally used for vaginal
right,
for menstrual bleeding,
yeah,
they contain cotton, which is absorbent, and
right,
it works great.
right,
But what you don't want is something uncontrolled going into a wound.
right,
So, while a wound cavity is not a natural cavity, a vaginal cavity is a natural cavity.
right,
So, if you can do it, get yourself a piece of gauze or one of those stop the bleed kits that they sell on Amazon for $37. And it includes gauze,
right.
it includes gloves, gauze. It also includes a longer, bigger gauze that you can use for packing so you fill up a wound. Some of them contain a stretchy, they call it an Israeli battle dressing or a stretchy ace bandage kind of
Okay,
thing that can really help hold pressure, but you still got to hold pressure. And then they include a tourniquet.
okay.
Tourniquets are included for when you need it because the bleeding doesn't stop. And really, the indication is hold pressure. Still bleeding, pack it. Can't pack it, or if it's still bleeding, put a tourniquet on.
Cut it off. I mean, cut off or tighten the circulation. No, I don't mean it that. Come on, I'm just
Cut off the circulation. Yeah.
circulation. Yeah.
And if the tourniquet you put on doesn't help stop it, put another tourniquet right above it.
Okay.
You want to start as close as you can. If you want to stop the bleed course, just go to stopthebleed.org and you can, we'll.
Now, there's been talk and a lot of, and I see a lot of people chatter online about, obviously the sort of the AR-15, the 226 bullets, or whatever the caliber is, but sort of they're I know that they're 45 millimeters long and they're
Well, the entire one with the casing is for.
with 45 millimeters with the casing, right? And so and it's traveling very quickly. Do you notice in shootings a difference between a wound with an AR-15 and a handgun?
Um, the most inexperienced person in the world could notice a difference.
And what is that?
So the energy behind it's not the size of the bullet necessarily, it's
Right,
the
it's
energy
a very
behind
small
it.
bullet.
Yeah, so most of them are, less than a centimeter wide,
Right.
and they are traveling at a high speed, but it's the velocity of speed that the velocity of that bullet or that projectile as it leaves the muzzle that determines the severity of the injury. It also depends on what you're wearing, where you are, if you're in a room, if you're through a wall. But if you get hit with these things, the energy that it serves is and I give people this example. If you're in a train station underground and the train goes by you, what do you feel?
You feel
That big
pressure,
breeze, right?
Yeah.
It's a pressure wave, and we call it if in a body in a solid material, it's called cavitation. In an open space, it's just called flow by or breeze, and you feel it. But imagine you've seen these ballistic, gels. That
Yeah,
people show
yeah.
on bullets,
To
right?
recreate a body, the soft
Yeah,
tissue.
and the bullet goes through, and you see this big wave of
And
energy. Yeah, because what happens is you push a lot of energy into a small space of soft tissue. It expands that energy in that space and injures everything around it for 5, 6, 7, sometimes at 12 inches. And it makes a huge impact on it. And then it leaves your body in a bigger space than it did enter it. So this big path of energy injures everything in between. And these types of weapons really are they're meant to kill. They're meant to
Right.
kill in one shot, which is great when you're firing at an elk, but not necessarily great when you're firing at your person.
So your view is that the folks claiming that these guns are not any more devastating than handguns is just bunk.
More devastating is a hard thing to say. So there are more handguns,
Right.
and handguns cause a lot of injuries and cause a lot of deaths in the world. Uh, and for all those people out there saying, "Oh, bullets don't,"
Right.
people, people
Yeah.
cause people or people not. Fine, you can say whatever you want. The fact is, if they didn't have a firearm with them, the injury afterwards would be far less. Stab wounds can kill.
Right.
A pill can kill.
Right.
A punch in the face can kill. But firearms do it, in my opinion, a little bit of a chicken way because you're doing it far away from somebody. If you're going to fight somebody, fight somebody. Throw fists, fisticuffs like you do in hockey. Make it a sport if you're going to do it that way. But people to shoot each other, I just think is so devastatingly horrible. Now, everyone says, "What about the police? The police, and what about military?" Well, I mean, if you're fighting a war, we don't fight wars with guns anymore. We fight, sometimes you do in certain places, but wars are fought with drones, and they destroy and they, drop bombs and shoot missiles.
Planes and yeah.
Hmm?
And planes and dropping bombs.
Yeah, and we do all these things from far away. So, yes, there's a devastating effect of firearms, and it hurts us, and we're the worst country in the world when it comes to it. But there's no way to prevent that from happening if people still insist on having these firearms. These are antiquated rules. The Second Amendment. I fully support the Second Amendment, but you have to have control.
Right. I agree with that.
And I don't mean over control from the government. I mean that if you're driving a car down, everyone driving a car down, though 99% of them have licenses, have been insured, have taken classes. And if you think about it, people who are older should take a refresher.
Yeah.
Well, people who take a firearm course take it once. There's a permit. You don't have to have insurance. The There's a little bit of laxity when it comes to who has licensure and who doesn't. Was a permit to carry? You don't have to show everybody. So carry conceal is an important thing to consider. But I don't think you need to have an AR-15. I don't think you need to have any firearm on you when you're in the supermarket.
But if you can control, let's say, a shot to the leg, like where it was going to land and in the same distance and all of that, and one was an AR-15 and a 9 millimeter, all day you would choose the 9 millimeter handgun over the
I
AR-15?
wouldn't choose that
No, no, you know
because
what I'm
I
saying.
am
But
not a,
no,
not a
no,
violent
I'm
person.
so no, I'm saying. But
If you're
if
trying to
just
stop someone who's committing a crime,
from the level of injury, like in other words, if you controlled for where it was going to land, right, and you shot somebody with a 9 millimeter handgun in the thigh or with a AR-15 in the thigh,
that
you
I would
control for those
recommend. I
variables.
would recommend. Well, there's no, you can't control them because people do what they're going to do. But I would choose a smaller caliber firearm. But at the same time, I want you to show me of the 20 people that you could recruit in the next 10 minutes who own firearms. I would bet that more than 50% of them can't hit that leg from that
No, no,
distance.
but I bet you're missing
They're
my
not.
point. I'm just asking you, like, about like, would you rather as a surgeon and as or as somebody that obviously gets hit with something like that?
We love taking care of big injuries, Rich, but I'd rather see people not injured at
No,
all.
I know that, but I'm saying, but would you agree that the AR-15 is going to cause a more devastating, in all things being equal?
If they hit all things being equal, it will cause a more devastating injury. Yes.
Okay. Now, when you have people come in, so you've seen people come in and sort of barely hanging on to life, or they may already be in arrest. They may have things. So you see a lot of people pass away, right? You see a
I
lot of
see a
people
lot of people die.
die. It's interesting. So, because pass away is actually a judgment, right? Pass away implies that they're going somewhere else.
Um,
That's a judgment.
I don't know what it implies. It implies that you're not using the term die.
Okay, they
I
die.
use the term
No,
death
no, no,
because it's
no.
very,
But right.
when people say he didn't make it, people say he passed away. People say all these different euphemisms for death. Just say what you mean.
Died.
People have to understand.
And they died. But I think pass away, and again, I'm sort of guilty of it too, because it seems like a nicer way or a way to sort of make you feel better about that there's somewhere that they've passed to somewhere else, right? That's what it means.
Okay.
They've passed it out to the other
I
side.
believe you.
But so when you've seen that and you've seen so much, and of course you see families lose young children, you see adults, matriarchs and patriarchs pass away, perhaps before prematurely, that at a younger age from an accident or from a cardiac issue, whatever it is, an aneurysm. Um, did it change your view of sort of what, if anything, may happen to us after death?
No.
And with all that experience, treating thousands of patients, seeing people die, do you have an opinion as to whether there is something that happens after we die?
I don't have an opinion on it because I'm a believer. I'm an empiricist, and
What does that mean?
I believe in evidence.
Okay.
So if someone can demonstrate to me that there is some form of existence after someone dies that is not just in the ground, I will appreciate it. What death teaches me is that when you die, you can't do the things that you want to do, so do them now. So the it's not fear of death; it's an expectation of death.
So do you think we're just does the lights go off and that's it?
I'm hoping
And it's sort of like before you were born, right? You have no memory of that.
most people don't.
No, right? So your view is even and have you seen people come in that you thought weren't going to were not going to remain alive? They were going to die, and then they sort of had a miraculous recovery.
I've seen a few people. Dare I say no, because there are predictors. You know who's going to die and who's not going to die.
Right away.
You the experience tells you with a lot of certainty who is going to make it. And there's also people who aren't going to, but we still work on those people who aren't going to because we want to bring their family in. A lot of people have a feeling about they want to be there when somebody dies, or they want to see them before they die.
Right.
They don't get closure unless they see it.
That's right.
I want them to get the experience they can at the end of life because that's important to them. I also remember, we also believe in organ donation and making sure that we have the ability to do that. So we resuscitate everybody because the chance of them being an organ donor is
Oh,
much more positive if they're resuscitated.
and when they come in, you don't know if they have had a is it called a hypoxic injury or
No, no, anoxic
anoxic
injury.
injury, right?
You and
Okay.
I had a patient that we talked about once, if you recall.
Oh, that's right. That's
And that
right.
person, who was exposed to something that caused them to be unconscious, had an anoxic injury. And no matter how much you hyperoxygenate them or give them hyperbaric or other treatments for it, it helps to a degree, but our brains are very, very sensitive. Now, there's a resilience in our brains. You can, it's kind of like if you have a savings account in your brain, you have a way of surviving without a certain amount of your brain functional, right? Somebody has a stroke and they can't walk, they learn to walk again. Most of them do because they can get resuscitated that way. They can have their brain work again. They can learn, rewire their brain to function that way. But eventually it gets to the point where the amount of brain tissue that's damaged is too much and you can't recover. That's what global anoxic injury or whole brain anoxia is. It's devastating.
But what is it? Is it called the autotonic? Help me with this. The
Autonomic nervous
autonomic
system?
nervous system. In other words, there's a sort of I call it like almost like a limp mode on a car. Like it can make certain things in your body. Makes your heart pump.
It doesn't
Makes
make
your
your
liver
heart
work.
pump, it makes sure that your heart pumps with a certain level of hormone because
Ah,
that autonomic nervous system is nerves and signals, it's hormones, and it's stimulating chemicals.
okay.
And if those are intact, then you have a motor running.
Uh,
Whether you go pop it in drive, put it in
ah.
reverse, put it in overdrive, depends on
But this gives the basics to sort of allow the motor to run.
yeah, cars, have evolved from being simple motors and wheels with steering and brakes to computerized devices, right? The modern car now that all of these computerized things is what our brain is more like. It has all these features that you can use and do, but the deficit is that all those brains and features and good parts, if they're broken, then you just have a car that goes from A to Z or A to B. But people don't work that way. Can't walk, can't talk, can't communicate, you can't do those things anymore.
So for you, having seen all of this, your position is that that when you die, and you don't haven't experienced anything that would lead you to indicate I'm not talking about sort of a triple blind, double blind study and all of that. I'm saying just like you saw something sometime that sort of gave you a glimpse into something that again, it's not science, but anecdotally,
I've seen some things that I can't explain very easily. I've also seen so much that makes me think there couldn't possibly be any stronger power out there making things better because it isn't. And that one same influence, I'm not going to say the word, but that one influence is also making people murder each other in the Gaza Strip. And that's
yeah,
on both sides.
yeah.
And I don't think it's fair to ascribe the joys of religion to people when religion kills more people than anything does.
So where do you stand now? You're obviously Jewish, ethnically.
I'm ethnically Jew, an Ashkenazi Jew.
Okay,
I've done my
right.
23andMe, and I am 99.999%
I'm like
Ashkenazi.
84%, but okay.
99, baby.
99. You're not Jewish. You're
I'm
Jew.
Jew, yeah. But I'm not a religious guy, and
Okay.
I work for a mission-driven, faith-based hospital that's born of the Catholic religion,
Okay.
Catholic faith. I believe in the mission, and that's what's the most
And what's
important
that
thing to
mission?
me.
Let's wrap up with
The
that.
mission is to help people, is take care of people, give them the best experience they can if they're ill, and focus them on keeping themselves well.
And what's the biggest challenge you see for medicine in the next 5 years?
Oh gosh, insurance companies,
Yeah.
they're horrible. Sorry, all you insurance
What about single
executives out there.
payer?
If it works, the problem is everyone has to agree to it.
Right.
And single payer systems work when everyone's on the single payer system. So in order to have a single payer system in the United States, you have to close United Healthcare.
Yeah,
That
that's
means
forget
closing
it.
Optum and
Forget
close
it.
CVS,
Forget
close
it.
all these
Forget
different
it. Not
agencies do
happening.
it. Close Aetna, Anthem, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and all the other. You're never going to find it. So it's never going to happen.
Never.
Never.
Well, this is what it is.
Now, if you control everyone's price and you said this is what it costs to have a knee replacement, then all hospitals then can be on the same footing. But even hospitals with the greatest performance can have a lower payment because of their negotiation skills, which I think is just horrible.
And
Would you like your life to be handled in the negotiation room?
and we don't have, at least again, you study this stuff closer than I do, but at least from what I read, we have very expensive healthcare, but not the best results
We
globally.
have very good
Yeah.
results. Are we the best in the world? No. But we also have levels of poverty that are different than other places in
Right.
the world.
Right.
We can handle more than we say we can, but we make it really difficult. Medicare and Medicaid are supposed to rescue us, and they don't.
Right. And is your hospital for profit or not?
No, nonprofit. I don't think I'd ever work for profit.
What percentage of hospitals are profit versus
I have
nonprofit?
no
No, but it's not for profit, so it's not owned by anybody.
idea. My house was owned by a corporate entity, but that corporate entity is a healthcare organization. It's not like it's owned by a venture capital.
No, right. But
But some
nobody.
hospitals
But
are.
Trinity isn't owned by shareholders, is it?
No,
Right. That's what I'm saying.
no.
It's not. There's no owner. That's what a not
Yeah,
for profit is.
the
There's no
board,
owner.
the board's
It's a board that runs
yeah,
it, but there's no owner. There's no shareholders.
correct.
Right.
I mean, St. Francis used to be owned by, used to be run by the diocese or the Archdiocese of Hartford back in the day, and it was founded by the Sisters of Saint Joseph of Chameray,
Wow.
127 years ago.
Wow.
They moved from France, opened up a hospital, and in 4 days after arriving, they took their first patients. But that was before insurers. That was because nobody could pay. If you have insurers that are controlling payment, it's to make money.
Right. They're
What
not.
does the
They're not
CEO
charities, right?
What does the CEO of Cigna make every year?
I don't know what. A lot. It's a lot.
What does the CEO of United Healthcare make?
Tens of millions of
Yeah.
dollars.
So if you're doing that and one person can make that much money off of healthcare, I mean, Jeff Bezos wants to make that much money, and what's his face, the guy that owns Tesla, wants to make that much money by creating things that people appreciate. It.
That people don't need, but they
That's a
want.
consumer
They want.
world,
Right.
right?
You don't need a Tesla, but
They are opting into the program. The hospitals are like that. Everyone needs healthcare.
is healthcare right?
Is it right?
Is it a right?
Um, right now, no.
No, but should it be a right?
It should
You believe?
absolutely be. It
Yeah,
should be a human right.
I like it. Dr. Shapiro, thank you.
Attorney
I
Rockland,
I,
my
I
pleasure.
enjoy our friendship, and I thank you for your time today.
Anytime.
Thanks.